Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 353, cover dated March 1998. The cover is by Chris Bachalo, inked by Tim Townsend, colored by Liquid, and it features Rogue versus Wolverine. She's got the gloves off, as the cover caption declares, and it looks like she's absorbing Wolverine's memories and powers, but why would that be? Also, something else to note, of course, is that she's in her original Brotherhood of Evil Mutants costume once again, the one that she wore in her first appearance back in Avengers Annual number 10 by Chris Claremont and Michael Golden. So that is suggestive of something being up with Rogue, but could it be true? Could she have turned finally against the X-Men? One other little detail I want to point out here in respect of the cover art is have a look at Rogue's hand on the back of Wolverine's head, and just imagine the way that the hand is placed there on the back of his head. What does that imply? To me, it implies that Wolverine basically has a pea brain, that there's no back of the head to him at all. So for my money, that's a little bit too exaggerated, too much artistic license from Bachalo with his quirky and sometimes wonky style. Let's open this one up to the splash page. Splash page is pretty cool. My memory of this particular run of comics prior to Grant Morrison coming on board with New X-Men is fairly spotty, but I do remember this. I do remember that cover, and I do remember this splash page, as well as the motif of the crows flying through the issue, which is a weird little Chris Bachalo touch. Don't 100% know what it means, but it's something that took his fancy, and it's intriguing anyway, that's for sure. So the story opens with a third-person narration. That's something favored by Stephen T. Seagle, who is the author of this issue. It's the human touch that matters. And so touch is going to be a theme throughout this issue. That's really Seagle's recurring strategy, that he sets up a theme in the opening of an issue and carries it through the duration of the issue. So here we have Rogue in her original costume. Wolverine is seated in a chair there. What am I doing? She thinks to herself, and then he recognizes her. But is this a dream? Is it reality? Let's turn the page. And so we've got an interesting spread here, artistically speaking. Again, you can see the bird flying across the top of the page. Rogue lays her hands on Wolverine. He cries out, and she says, "Sorry, Wolvie, but I have to touch you. I need your life, your thoughts, your power." And he says to her, "That may be, but it's no way to go about it." And thrusts her to one side of the room, or rather throws at her the back of the chair, it looks like, or something of that order. Now, this is a feature of Chris Bachalo's style that can lead to a little bit of confusion in terms of reading the story. So it looks like Rogue and Wolverine are in the same open panel here, but actually what we're supposed to understand is we're looking at her on the other side of the room, looking over at him. But it looks like they're sharing the same space. That happens again elsewhere in this issue, and I'll point it out when we get to it. So the third person narrator continues, "It's the human touch that can change the world from something you know into something you don't in a heartbeat." They fight here. He stabs her through the stomach. That's a pretty good panel there. Rogue says, "Time was, that might have killed me, but that time's done and gone now that I absorbed your healing ability into me." So we see the healing of her torso there. And she grabs him by the scruff of his uniform and says that she's absorbed his healing ability and all his delicious memories. And this is a really intriguing bit. Really, this is the most interesting part of the whole issue. "You never told us you had a son, Wolvie. I wonder what his touch is like." So, how could this be? What does this imply? What is Seagle up to? Rogue continues there, extruding bone claws from the back of her hands Does good taste run in the family, she asks, like father, like cub? And Wolverine replies to her claws, you can't, you're going to pay for this. So the human touch, gentle, compassionate, supportive, ironic in respect of what we're looking at in these panels as Rogue and Wolverine fight. And the crows there continue their flight. Sympathetic, it's the one thing that can bring two people together. Wolverine gets her on the ground and she begs him, do it to me, please. I can't control myself. Kill me. So we have a sequence of 10 panels down here, 10 small panels, where he is stabbing her with his claws. And suddenly these feathers appear. And let's turn the page and see what is going on. Well, it was all a dream. It was a nightmare. But the crows continue their flight across the tops of the pages. So Rogue wakes up sweating, and the third person narrator says, the human touch is sacred, except for the mutant X-Man known as Rogue, for whom it is a curse. And yeah, it was all a dream, but she's there thinking to herself, or the narrator asks, wasn't it? I thought leaving Remy in Antarctica was the worst memory I'd have to suffer through this lifetime, she thinks to herself, but now these dreams start coming and just won't stop. It ain't fair. So Storm arrives in her bedroom, having heard Rogue calling out in her sleep, and Rogue says, thanks, I was just well, I don't know what I was doing. And Storm says, well, it sounded like you were having a nightmare. And she thinks it's about Gambit. And Rogue says, got a minute to talk. So Storm does. And she says, it's just that I had a dream where I touched Logan, drained him dry. And Storm says to her, dreams are not reality, Rogue. Were they? Professor Xavier's vision of peaceful coexistence between man and mutant would have come true long ago. And there would be no need for the X-Men. But Rogue interrupts her and says, I liked it, Storm. I relished it. I thought I was over that. But in Antarctica, something happened. Our powers were taken away for one night. This is reference to the end of Uncanny X-Men 349. And she says, for one night, and Remy and me, we were closer than I've ever been to anyone. That is to say that they slept together that night. In those few moments, Storm, but then she uses her real name, Aurora, I felt how real a touch could be. They made the rest of my life seem so empty and meaningless, made me feel like I've been on autopilot these past few years. And Storm interrupts and says, you do not have to explain further to me. I felt a similar rebirth when I first found Forge. So reference back to Uncanny X-Men 186. So Stephen T. Seagle doing his homework here, or at least remembering the issues of Uncanny he read when he was a youth himself, perhaps. Storm continues, but the fact is that your powers carry with them the repercussion of assimilating those you touch into your own psyche. We all know that. And Storm continues, would that we could live in the moments we cherished, but we cannot. You should savor your memories of the past, but find a way to cope with your present. So Storm then invites her out to the pond for fun and nature. Isn't it winter, asks Rogue. Turn the page. And it is winter. And then there are the crows. And they're seated over this billboard, which gives us the credits for the story, Blackbirds, by Stephen Seagle, Chris Bachalo with Tim Townsend on inks, Richard Starkings and Comicraft on the digital letters, and Steve Buccellato on the digital colours. So we have a little scene now with Angel and Psylocke, who are a romantic item and who are living in Warren's loft in Soho, Manhattan, and they're having a talk. And Angel is wondering about whether his place is with the X-Men or living a more or less civilian life with Psylocke in New York. And he says here, after all I said and did in Antarctica, I feel bad just dumping them off at an empty mansion and coming here where we've got all this, but it's just not my responsibility, is it? And Psylocke says to him, don't punish yourself, just decide which is more important to you, our life here or your life there. He says it's not that simple. And she says, and this is a pretty good drawing of her standing on the ledge of the rooftop, "Since my transformation under the Crimson Dawn, I've learned that souls are primal, that you have to go with your heart, that life is easy, but only if you make the hard choices. Choose," she says, "that life or this one." And what's she going to do? Turn the page. She falls backwards off the ledge of the rooftop. An angel flies down after her, grabs her before she hits the ground, and he asks her, "Are you crazy?" And she says, "No, Warren, I'm alive more now than ever. So are you. You know exactly what you want. It's here, it's me, it's us. You just have to shut out that bloody little voice in your head that tells you to question that." But Angel's not happy. He says, "You know, Betsy, if I don't even know what I'm thinking, I sure don't know how you can believe you do." She's a telepath, Warren. Anyway, he continues and says, "But I do know one thing. I don't appreciate what you just did, and you're going to find it a lot harder to survive your next fall if there's no one there to catch you." So, a tiff between the lovers. And then the scene switches back to Salem Center in the morning. For some reason, Jubilee is at the X-Mansion. So this is in the aftermath of Operation Zero Tolerance. So instead of going back to Generation X in Massachusetts, she's joined the remainders of the X-Men in Salem. And who do we have here? We've got Cannonball, we've got Wolverine, we've got Maggot, we've got Iceman, and another feature of Chris Bachalo's wonky, weird style is have a look at the back of Cannonball's head there. Look how short the back of his head is from his eye and ear there. He's got no place for a brain. There's no space for a brain. And look at how big his nose is as well. That's some schnoz. Anyway, back to the story. A bit of comic back and forth here between Iceman and Jubilee with her water pistol. Logan asks Rogue as she strolls into the breakfast room, "You okay, Rogue? You look a little..." And then she reacts wildly. "Don't come near me," she says. And that takes Logan by surprise. What's that all about? Not like I've got the plague, darling. So she apologizes. She heads out. She says she'll come swimming. And Logan says, "This bunch is getting way too moody for me." "You're not wrong, Logan." And then he says, "May have to take off soon." "That would be a good idea." Storm says to him, "Calm yourself, Logan. It's just female troubles." She's merely... And so he says, "Hold that thought." And he's sniffing there. "We've got a visitor. I'll go deal with him and meet you at the pond afterwards." So who's this visitor? Is it a supervillain? Because that's happened so many times before. Let's turn the page. So Logan's out hunting, racing on the grounds of Professor X's domain. Like the little detail of the hair there as well. This is a nice panel by Bachalo. He is bounding through the woods. He sees a figure here in the middle of the woods. And he's thinking, my oldest friends can't be straight and narrow. If my oldest friends can't be straight and narrow with me, I'm going to lose my temper on little punks with big... And I'm going to lose my temper on little punks with big mouths like Marrow. So a reference to X-Men 72 there. Then maybe it is time I took a breather and hit the road. Have to give that some serious thought once I'm done with this gate crasher. Now this pose here, as he's kind of on his hunkers on the tree branch, reminds me of Sam Keith. And there is some similarity between Bachalo's style and Sam Keith's style. Kind of these chunky figures. And the eccentricity of some of the poses and layouts. So I reckon that Sam Keith was an artist that Bachalo would have been looking at. So Wolverine hops off the tree and comes up behind the intruder. And it's an old woman. And who is she? She says her name is Margaret Stone. And who is she? What's her function? She's an inspector for the Board of Education. So that's a bit of a swerve. So Logan then recovers and he says, oh, pleasure's all mine then. Name's Logan. And she asks him, is that your first name or your last? Take your pick, he says. So not James Howlett, everyone. The woman says, we sent a notice regarding an impending inspection of the school. This is the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning, isn't it? And Logan asks, but what are you doing way back here? I didn't mean to scare you, but these grounds are private and we've had trouble with intruders before, most recently the Juggernaut. So she says, I chose to begin my inspection with the grounds, your contact with the board, Mr. Charles Xavier. And Logan says here, interestingly, that's Xavier with a long A, not a short. So was she pronouncing Xavier? Maybe that's what's implied there. It's a little unclear. Mr. Xavier has not filed his biannual report in over 2 years, she says. I was sent to inquire as to why and to reaccredit the institution. So Logan says, well, this isn't a good time. You might want to come back in a month or so. But she isn't. She has the authority to be there and she's going to have a look around. So here's an advertisement now. Comics in 1998 were not doing well sales-wise. So Marvel's making a push here to rebrand themselves as the House of Ideas with lots of new titles coming through. And you can see them here. There's going to be a little bit more about the legacy virus they're promising. Spider-Man, Adam Kubert on Hulk, John Romita Jr. on Thor, pencil sketch there. Blade, because the movie was going to be coming out very soon. Wolverine, that's Leniel Francis Yu. Calling all the way back to Jack Kirby for that particular image. Spider-Girl, and there you go. And a whole load of advertisements there for upcoming stuff from Marvel in 1998. Then there is a page where we pick up with Bishop, who has been missing. The X-Men don't know where he is, but he's with Deathbird, and she is ensuring that he is healing here on this ship that she's piloting. And Scott Lobdell was implying that there was a romantic interest by Deathbird towards Bishop, and Steven Seagle is just making it explicit. She tells Bishop, we are on our way, Bishop, my love, on our way back to the realm. We will soon rule together. Your crippled body heals with remarkable speed. Now, and he starts to vocalize, and she says, no, don't try to speak or move or even think. You're in no condition to do anything now, save bask in my all-consuming care and my undying love. So one wonders whether this is a bit like Stephen King's Misery that's going on here, except of course that she is hoping that he's healed. But what does Bishop think about any of this? We saw in Lobdell's issues that Bishop was interested in Deathbird, so maybe it's mutual and reciprocated. Now we have a scene with Joseph, so Rogue goes to Joseph. This is very typical Bachalo, all this quirky stuff. And she says to him that she's visiting him to see what she can do for him. Remember when we were in space, she asks him. I said I'd help you remember everything about the man you were. Well, I was thinking that there's one way I could do that. A risky way, but a surefire one. And Joseph says, you're not suggesting a touch, she says. Just a little one. Enough to look inside your thoughts and see if... So is Rogue becoming addicted to touch since that night with Gambit? Also, again, Bachalo, quirky art alert. Look at the size of Rogue's torso there. It is tiny. She's got a massive head. And it's basically like two heads from hip to her big bobblehead. Looks at the proportions look a bit better there, but really strange stuff from Bachalo. Anyway, Joseph isn't interested. He's sweating though. I think your absorption of Gambit has gone to your head, he says. She protests. He replies, Rogue, if you believe that you're trying to help me, it's you who needs help. So off she goes, and she runs into Logan again. She won't shake the hand of the Department of Education inspector, and Logan says, female troubles, you know how it is, no call for alarm. There are people down the path that'll take care of her. Why don't we go have that look inside? Inside, Joseph, who's sweating there, has gone completely bananas here, and he's ranting. No, stay away from me, stay away. So what on earth is going on here? Also, look at the weirdness of the facial expression here on Joseph, and he's wrecked the room more than the TV. So Logan is having a hard time here trying to put a positive spin on the Xavier Institute, and the woman walks off. Logan there just holding the side of his face. Cripes. So nothing went easy there. And then down at Breakstone Lake. So the X-Men are having a bit of fun. And Maggot there is flirting with Storm, but she's having none of it. More kind of banter there between Iceman and Jubilee. Logan arrives, and he explains that the Department of Education inspector was on the grounds. We got problems, Storm, big problems, I'll tell you later. So he's asking after Rogue. Notice how he didn't go back in to look after Joseph or find out what was going on there. Instead, he goes after Rogue. There we've got Maggot admiring Storm's derriere. And Iceman. See, this is interesting. Like, one of the things that Lobdell did on his run is that he matured Iceman, whereas Steven Seagal is giving us the more classic version of Iceman as a jokester. So that's what we're getting here. And he catches Logan there with Snowball. How about I go for the field goal then, he says to Drake. Hey, calm down, says Iceman. Logan tackles him into the water, it looks like. Pops his claws. And then who's up in a tree branch down at the lake except for Marrow? Nice to see you don't just pick on little girls, she mocks from the tree. First the one you don't like, then the ones you do. Is that it? So Logan tells her, you better go back in the basement and hide there, girl, or I'll give you another dose. So Storm calls everyone to order. Let us not have the serenity of nature disrupted with these childish vendettas. Logan storms off. And here in the shadows, there's someone with a claw-like hand thinking alone. Yes, good. Who is it? Is it Joseph? And Storm here sees there's a cut on Iceman's leg. You're bleeding. She says, did Logan cut you? And he says, I didn't see him use his claws. So Iceman says there's something in there, something metal. Maybe some ice can help clarify exactly what. So he uses his ice slide to get an aerial view, and it's a blackbird. And it turns out it's the original blackbird. And this is interesting. Storm says, I told Forge he should hide its remains after crafting the new one. That's all the way back in X-Men, Adjectiveless X-Men #1. I'd no idea he'd been this resourceful. So that's an interesting retcon from Seagal. So that the X-Men have at least the Blackbird, the original one, after Bastion cleared the mansion out of all of its tech and all of their equipment. So Iceman says we should get it out. Now that we've got Zilch to our name, maybe we should sell it. We could sell it for scrap or something. And Storm wonders perhaps Rogue could lift it out. Where is she? So where is Rogue? So Logan here has gone someplace quiet to get a little piece. And he's thinking to himself, good going, Logan. What next? Old women, the sick and infirm, face facts. You're a loner. You've always been a loner. Domestic garbage may work in the short term, but it always loses its hold on you in the long run. So he's continuing to think about leaving and having a spell solo, heading wherever, maybe to Madripoor, why not, the Princess Bar. But someone, and it looks like female hands, grabs him from the back of his head. We've got a little bit of Kirby crackle there. It's the human touch that can change the world from something you know into something you don't in a heartbeat. So they hear Logan screaming, and here they come running for him. That's a pretty good panel by Bachalo. And when they arrive, Rogue is there. And Storm asks her, "What have you done to Wolverine?" And she replies, "Done? I was on my way over. I heard him screaming. I found him here, honest." And then Storm makes a mistake. Step away from him, Rogue. And Rogue is aghast. "You don't believe me?" And Storm says, "We'll sort that out. For now, though, please stand away from Logan." So off she runs. "I trusted you," crying. And somebody here says, "Wildman here's got some serious hurt on Storm." Maybe that is Maggot saying that. Let's turn the page. Yeah, it is. And Storm says, "I fear I already know his symptoms, Maggot. We must get him into the house immediately." So she's thinking he's being drained of his energy. But it turns out it wasn't Rogue that did it. It was Sauron, Karl Lycos. So there's been some seeding that Lycos had himself mailed from Antarctica to New York, and he's made his way to the X-Mansion because once upon a time he was brought there by the X-Men to be cured permanently. That was very specifically in Marvel Fanfare number 4. You'll find a review of that comic in the back catalogue here on the channel. And what does he say? In classic Silver Age villain style, remember he's a creation of Roy Thomas and Neil Adams, he says, "It's a plane, it's a bird, it's Sauron. Evil incarnate is among you once more." Okay, so a bit of a joke there, but then this part here is the true Silver Age style. Then in Alaska, so Jean Grey and Scott Summers, aka Phoenix and Cyclops, are on a leave of absence from the X-Men because Scott is recovering from the nanotech bomb that was implanted in his stomach by Bastian. It was removed, but his recovery is slow. So they've gone to his grandparents' home in Alaska, and the house is covered in snow. This is a nice page art-wise. And Jean says, "I've been practicing lately with her telekinesis. Oh, nervous husband of mine. I can do this with no problem. All we need here is a woman's touch." There you see, no problem at all. So she clears all the snow. But what's this? It's the Phoenix Firebird emblem on the ground. And what does that portend? Next, prehistory, and an interesting little drawing there of Sauron hunkered down with his wings out. Intriguing stuff. So there you go. Some pretty nice art, but also some wonky art from Bachalo in this issue. And one page of letters there. Nothing terribly interesting in that. Next issue, it's Sauron versus the X-Men for what, like the 5th, the 6th time? Okay, is it going to be interesting again this time? What new thing is Stephen T. Seagle going to do with Sauron? Well, we'll find out in the next issue. So I do hope that you enjoyed the review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 353. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.